Can you hear the cuckoo? I don't know if you can hear it, but it's amazing. And here I am, what is it, 7 at night up the Hill of Beans? And I just took my AirPods out to listen to the cuckoo and then found myself thinking, why don't I tape something? Because I'm listening to an amazing book right now. Fiona Hill is the author, and the title is There's Nothing for You Here. You're probably getting glare from the sun, by the way, aren't you? I'll try and come round to this angle. So Fiona Hill is a Russia expert who has served under 3 US presidents in the White House. And this book is a memoir / history book. I mean, aren't all memoirs kind of history books in a sense? Now, she's working class, grew up in County Durham, born in 1965, so there's a 6-year difference between our ages. I'm 6 years younger, in case you're wondering. And she went to St Andrews University, which is my alma mater. I went there in 93, she went there in 84, and she just talked about getting off the bus with her family when they went on a visit to have a look round St Andrews. And when a passing stranger heard their northern accents, he stopped and asked them if they needed some help, because he too was from the northeast. Turns out it's John Sullivan, who was still there. He taught me Russian history when I started in 93. So I'm already feeling an affinity with this woman. And I'm kind of surprised at how much I'm enjoying Memoir, by the way. I think I'd probably forgotten that. But she's now talking about what like it is to be working class in St Andrews. That's something I know something about. Because when I got there, you know, I felt like a fish out of water, much as Fiona Hill did. And at the moment, I'm just listening to the section where she's still in first year, and she's been accosted by a fellow pupil from Cheltenham Ladies College who accused her of sleeping with the French professor, Mr. Hunt, because she got a good mark in a literature essay. Like, so, yeah, I mean, being working class in St Andrews is not easy. I'm hoping that she stays on St Andrews for a chapter or so, because I want to hear about the rest of her time there and what it was like for her as she approached graduation. Because it changed for me. You know, I first felt like I didn't belong, which led to some mental health problems. I used a lot of alcohol to help me through that period, but I did okay, you know. And by the time I got to my final year, after the sort of mental health problems of my penultimate year, I was actually doing all right. And you know, with the Yaz, as we called them, the posh folk, they're just ordinary folk, you know what I mean? And you could fit in with them. I mean, at first I was a bit of a curiosity for them, but so too were they for me. I'm like, who are these posh folk? And in my first year I used to stomp around wearing big black boots and a kilt, and I had my head shaved with an undercut and a ponytail. I looked a bit scary, and people told me that once they got to know me in later years. I remember you in first year, you were quite scary. Although they wouldn't have said it in a Scottish accent, obviously. So yeah, I'm enjoying this book so much. It's one that I heard about when I was reading for the review that I'm writing about Black Earth by Andrew Mayer. Now, Andrew Mayer is a journalist / academic, but he was a journalist when he wrote his Black Earth book, which is a travelogue / political history book about Russia during the 90s. And Andrew Mayer was in Russia in 89, about the same time as Fiona Hill, I guess. So I suppose that's how this connection was made. That's just come to me now. And he was there through the 90s and ended up working for Time magazine. I think from 96. Fiona Hill, from what I've read of the blurb, I haven't got to this bit yet, but I think she went out there also in 89. She studied Russian at St Andrews and did the beginners course. So for those that don't know, which is probably most of you, at St Andrews you had the choice of 2 tracks with Russian. You could either start as a beginner, or you could go in as someone with A-level / higher, and then you were put into a different class and you did different, you did different literature as well. Obviously the beginners couldn't be reading Russian literature in Russian, but the A-level / higher people could, and I was in the higher / A-level group, having studied Russian in the army and then gone on to do higher, which I took twice actually. I got a C the first time and a B the second time, 2 years running. And my teacher there was also called Mr. Hunt, and he became a friend actually. He's such a lovely guy, Stuart Hunt. Anyway, so yeah, Fiona Hill did the beginners track, and then what happens is after you do 2 years, you then come together in what's called junior honours. St Andrews does 4 years for an MA. I'm not sure why they do that. It's not a BA that you get, it's a 4-year degree for which you earn an MA honours degree. So you come together in junior honours and then you do senior honours as well, and then you get your degree. So I did single honours Russian, which meant I did just Russian, no other topics, except in first and second year when you get to experiment with other topics. Majors and minors is the American term for it, but we never called them that. Anyway, I just wanted to talk a bit about how this book is making me feel. It's inspired me to pick up the pen a couple of times, just because, the first time I was thinking, it's all right for Fiona Hill, and I read the first chapter and I was like, working class woman goes to St Andrews and she's now doing a job that I would kill for. How come I don't have that job? It's like that. But then this morning, it was this afternoon actually, it was after lunchtime because I had a podiatry appointment. I found myself writing about my gratitude for the opportunities that I've had, being educated, and how that came about, through joining the army at 16, doing a modern languages aptitude test. This is after having come out of school with no qualifications whatsoever at 16. Modern language aptitude test, and then going on to study Russian in the army. Halfway through my training, getting knocked off a cliff and smashing up my leg, which resulted in a medical discharge. Then back to school, which is where I did my higher Russian 2 years running, as well as history, which I wrote about today, because that stayed with me. I did 2 years of history because I failed it the first time around. The second time I got a C pass. So basically I got into St Andrews with 3 hires, I think. I did 3 hires over those 2 years. So yeah, that's basically what got me in, which is remarkable really. No A's. St Andrews, I guess, took a punt on me, which I see as an opportunity, the fact that they did that. And then, it was hard work, but I got there. I got a 2-1 upper second class degree. Probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest achievement of my life. And then went on to do a postgraduate degree in Russian translation and interpreting, with a side degree in business studies. Mental. And here I am now with an education, and although I'm not serving under the president as a Russia expert, I'm still hungrily reading history books, politics, mainly about Russia, but also about the UK, which is what I find so interesting about this memoir, because, Fiona Hill was a wee bit ahead of me and remembers things about what was happening in Britain, but she's obviously done a bit of research, and like she just talked about Margaret Thatcher's being bombed at the Brighton Conference 1984, which was the year that she started at St Andrews. And things like that I kind of remember, but I was a little bit too young for it to sink in. And also, I think my working class roots as well, and being Scottish, kind of meant that Thatcher wasn't really a topic that we talked about unless it was disparagingly, you know, because she wasn't popular in Scotland at all. But yeah, I wanted to talk about how gratitude came into my life today. And then I thought about my wife. You know, I got to meet her at Bradford. Very first day, sitting in the induction day, looking at her across the room and thinking, oh, she's nice. And then we got together pretty much straight away, just a couple of weeks before we got together. So October 98, and we're still together, still happily married. So, you know, and the kids came along, and I've got things in my life that I regret, but they all have led to where I am today. So what I need to be thinking about is, what do I do now? How do I give back? That's a thing that came up in Fiona Hill's memoir. Her MP in the northeast came to visit her secondary school, and he was a very big man about education and about how education is a right but also a privilege, and if you receive an education and do well, it's kind of your duty to use that education in a positive way. So, you know, that's kind of what I'm thinking about, and I think I'm doing that, you know, with my classic Russian literature slow reads. I mean, the amount of time and effort I'm putting into that is quite, it's full time actually, and I'm having the best time with it, and people are finding it useful. So I hope that I can grow that and make it more useful and do better work, improve, iterate, which I guess I'm doing, because this is what, my fourth or fifth slow read that I'm doing with Dr. Zhivago. And I spent time this afternoon reading a book about Olga Ivinskaya, who was Boris Pasternak's lover and the inspiration for Lara, the main character, or the main female lead in Dr. Zhivago, and making cross-references with the Zhivago affair, which I've also just read, and copying out quotations and linking up to The Critical Companion, which I've also read. So my knowledge is expanding. Having an education means that you want more of it. I mean, that's how it is for me. And listen to memoirs and history and literature, and it's just so good. You know what I mean? This is what I get to spend my days doing. And then coming up here to my favourite place to listen to cuckoos.